Recordings in progress. Good evening. This is Echo Platoon. Evenings, weekends, part-time course, week 1, day 2. It is May 31st, 2023. I am your host, Jordan West. Today, we're going to be learning about the command line. Does anyone know what the command line is? What does it mean when I say command line? I'm going to say it a lot.
That's the
It's
blank line where the cursor is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's good.
it's like
What,
to access. It's a way to access files without the GUI. Like
yeah. Yeah. So the command line is basically everything that this little mouse here is doing can be accomplished in this box here. Oh, I need to crush this down a little bit. I always have to do this. Yeah, the command line is a way for me to interact with my OS via just some words and phrases. I don't have y'all's thing here, do I? Yeah, that's all pretty cool. So it is definitely just a way to navigate the your OS. It can look at files, it can create files, it can delete files, it can list files. It can do a lot of stuff that your UI can do, but better and faster, and you don't have to learn anything new about it every time there's an OS update. It acts very similarly between Linux, OS X, and Windows, with the exception of Windows being dumb, but it still operates pretty much, for the most part, 30% of what you want to do still works in Windows, and navigation is about the same. Why is this important? Why can't I just use the mouse for everything and click on stuff? I've been doing it for years. You can. It will slow you down a little bit, and being able to push out scripts and commands and instructions for your code via the command line is significantly easier, more reproducible, and significantly less chance to have human error than remembering which buttons to click on a UI. We're going to be using VS Code a lot. Some people don't use VS Code. Some people use PyCharm. Some people use IntelliJ. C# developers and other people who think it's cool use what is called Visual Studio. Visual Studio is not VS Code. Visual Studio is very, very, very heavy IDE. You press a button and it runs and compiles and does a bunch of things and spits out an executable and starts it up and does a ton of things behind the scenes that you won't ever know about. It's really powerful. It debugs code. It runs C# like there's no other. And when somebody tries to get me to run their C# code and they wrote it in IntelliJ, or sorry, not IntelliJ, Visual Studio, I have a big problem trying to do that as well, because I don't have Visual Studio. Becoming reliant on an IDE, becoming reliant on software that's highly click intensive and whatnot, is not the best way to share your work. Unless all of us today said, hey, we're all going to use Visual Studio, we're all going to update it exactly the same, we're going to use the same version, and that way we'll all be able to work together. We wouldn't be able to get away with that. Learning your command line, basic things on the command line, how to navigate your machine, how to run things, different types of files, different types of permissions, things like that, is going to make you a very I don't know the best way to explain it other than it makes you really useful, because a lot of people don't know how to do this super well. I found very senior coders, to me, senior front-end developers who don't really navigate this at all, and that's fine until it's not. And sometimes their stuff breaks and they don't understand why, and it's very easy for me to fix, and they're basically blocked by it because they're not familiar navigating this. So if you're hesitant to learn this, too bad, we're going to be doing it. But it is very useful, and it's useful in ways that you're not gonna see right off the bat. And I can't even fully explain, because so often people ask me questions or get stuck, and I'm always like, well, shoot, if you just ever opened up your terminal, you would know how to do this. That's why I like Vim. It's very well connected to the terminal. Everything that works on the terminal works in Vim. But I'll be using VS Code, obviously. Anyways, let's get into this. Command line interface. There's just a few short slides. I'm going to talk about them, and that's probably going to be most of this lecture. We'll kind of take a look at the assignments. Here's the command line. This is what a graphical user interface looks like on your Mac. Don't do that. You've got your folders listed here. You've got cute little icons for them. Sometimes, if they're folders, you can open them up. You know, here's your files. If they don't have an arrow, they're probably a file. You can do the same thing, you know, here. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to open up this curriculum. I think this is, I'll talk about things before I do them. CD is change directory. CD is an executable that exists. No, it's built in. The shell just knows it. Whenever you're working in Bash or ZSH or the shell that we've set up for you, there are some things that it just knows. Change directory, it certainly knows. To change directories, you do CD, and then you give it wherever you want to go. I want to go into curriculum, so I can start typing out curriculum, and I can hit tab, and it'll autocomplete. I don't have to do that. I can type out the whole thing, but if I make a mistake, no such file or directory curriculum. So not only is it faster to let it autocomplete for you, you're less likely to make mistakes. What happens if there's two options? Look at this. This is why I like Z shell. I hit CD space C. Well, there's two options it could be. One of these two. I hit tab, bounce between them. I want to go to curriculum. There we go. It finishes it. You hit enter. We're now there. My terminal is doing some special things, but not that special. It's telling me who I am, which machine I'm on, tells me which directory I'm in. This is home, source, code platoon, curriculum. These are all things I've made up. This doesn't have to be what you call it, but you will always see this. This is home. I'm on the master branch. I believe that means I have unsaved changes. I'm on the origin of the master branch in this repository. We don't all know what that means yet. That's okay. It's very useful for me. If I want to look around, I use ls. These are all these things in here. Notice this looks familiar. It's not an exact one-on-one. I should have pulled this down on this machine. But if I were to open the curriculum, oh yeah, I think this is right. Look, here are the folders we've got. Here's a README. Notice the dark blue is my directories. The light blue is my files. That's something I've configured. That's just the way I've done it. Okay, I'm lagging right now. Hold on, y'all. I'll mess everything up. And I think we're back. Sorry, when I close my machine, it bogs down sometimes. Forgot. I need to get a newer personal machine. I'll pause real quick. All right, I'm paused right now. Can y'all hear me? Can someone speak? Sorry about that. Well,
Yeah,
good.
hear you.
Can't hear you.
I just heard my fans warming up and everything started bogging down. All right. I leave my laptop shut. All of a sudden, one day, it started slowing down when I'm doing anything on the internet. So, all right, we'll resume. And we're back. Okay, cool. These are directories. This is a file. That's the way I've got my color scheme set up. If you don't believe me, we can look a little bit deeper. So again, ls shows you everything in this directory, everything in this curriculum directory here, right? But there are other commands you can pass to ls, such as la. What does L and A do? I'm pretty sure A, yep, does what I thought it did. A is going to show us hidden files or dot files. So these are, let's look again. So ls shows us all these. ls-a Look, we've got these in here. What is this? What is this dot get ignore? What's this dot get? Those are hidden. We couldn't see them before. Dash A is going to show me hidden files. Why do you want hidden files? So you don't touch them, basically. It's not that I care that you see my get or dot get files folders here, but I don't want to see them all the time. When I'm navigating, when I'm looking at stuff, those aren't important. I'm not going to be touching those. I'm not going to be digging into this get directory ever because it's doing a lot of magic under the machine or under the hood that I don't want to see. That's why I hide it. Not because there's anything in there you don't need to be seeing. It's just I don't want to interact with it. So you put a dot in front of it and it kind of goes away. ls-l does something cool. It gives us a lot of information. Remember I said these were directories. How will you know? Well, this D here stands for directory. This doesn't have one. That's because this is the README. That's a file. This looks like a lot of nonsense, but it does actually make a lot of sense. This is telling me that this directory here is owned by Squid, which is me. It's part of a group called staff, and it was last modified on these dates. These are the bytes required to save this directory. This is the last date modified. Read, write, execute is what this means. That means these three are for the user, these three are for the group, and then these three are for all. It doesn't matter too much to you guys because you're probably only going to be working on your machine. But if somebody were to come into my machine somehow and they were not named Squid, they would not be able to write in this directory because only Squid's allowed to do that. No users can write. So these Squid has read, write, execute. Everyone else has read and execute. Reading means you can see it. Writing means you can add to it. And execute means you can run it. We'll get into that later. A lot of stuff you're not going to need to do all the time. I'm just showing you there are basic bash commands for navigation, and they can be given flags to do extra things. Let's see. Okay. What can I do with the command line? Add folder, remove folder, list contents, add file, remove file, navigate to another folder, and thousands of other things. You can do all sorts of things. Does it want me to walk through these? Yeah, it does. I think here it maybe wants you to walk through, but we'll explain. Add a folder. Make directory is how you would add a folder. New folder. Don't do this. That's not allowed because make directory is expecting one thing, and then the word folder is coming later. So it's probably going to build a directory called new and then say, I don't know what folder means. Or it creates two. Oh my gosh. No, it did create two. Make or new and folder. I should test that ahead of time. While we're on it, don't put spaces in your, don't have spaces in your directories. Don't call files and folders space names. Do underscores. So try that again. Make directory, new folder. There it is. There it is again. New folder. If I do LSART, this is going to do them in the order they were last modified. There's my new folder. It's got some, it's going to pretty much take on the same permissions as the directory it's created in. It was created on May 31st, 1803. Done. We can remove a folder. rm-rf will remove a folder if I want it to. Cool. Add a file. I should do a folder before the file. Files are even easier. Touch new file. There it is. There's my new file. If I want to remove a new file, I just rm. I don't need the rf. R. Before I say that, just off the top of my head. Yep, F is force. R, I believe, is. Yep. Remove the file or file hierarchy rooted in each file argument. basically what that's telling you is it's going to delete everything within it and then the folder itself. F is force. I don't want to be asked, are you sure you want to do that? This is directory. What if there's stuff in there? You're always going to need -RF if you want to delete a folder. List contents, navigate to another folder. We already showed you that's LS and CD. If I were to create a new folder called new folder, fold, there it is. We can CD into it. There we are. If I do PWD, I can see a list of everywhere I've gone. I am now in curriculum and new folder. If I look around, there's nothing in here. If I create a file in here, there's now a file in here. If I back out, let me get rid of that. It's confusing. You can see new folder, but you don't see that new file. If I want to look at a directory without going into it, I can actually LS. If you just do LS, it shows you what's here. If I LS a directory, I can look inside that directory, which there it is. There's that file. I want to blow it all away. As you probably know, RM-RF, new fold, gone, gonzo. All our work is destroyed. That's why we use Git. Any questions about what I've just done here? There are hundreds of other commands that you can do from the command line. If you ever see me doing something and you don't understand it and you'd like to, let me know. You can do a lot of things. Yeah.
How would you know where you're at in the, like
What's
if you're using like say a visual like user interface, Windows-based interface, it shows you the hierarchy, the path, the breadcrumbs or whatever, where a folder is located and the overall hierarchy. How would you know that on the command line? Like if you type, I guess, LS or just CD, does that bring you back to the top of the hierarchy or just to wherever you're at the moment?
This is where I'm at the moment. This is derived by doing PWD. This shows me exactly where I am at.
Okay.
If I wanted to go to the very top, I could do change directory and provide it nothing.
Okay.
And I'm at the very top. If I want to go back to the last place I changed directories from, you can give it a dash and get back in there. There's also pop T and pop push T, pop T. There's a lot of crazy things. You can search for things. You can read. Cat will do something interesting. It'll look at the contents of something. grep will go and look for words within a file. Grep, the word video, I provided readme.md. It shows me a line that says, hey, yeah, this is in here. I could also search every directory and find the word video in all of them. It's going to yell at me because they're directories. I could recursively search. You can use things like sed, which is a stream editor. I can straight up use regex, provide a file, and say, hey, change every word that says this to this, do it on the file, do it on all lines. From the command line, that means I can straight up write code into a file from a command line without getting into the file. Seems like a lot of work. It's actually not a lot of work sometimes. It'd be really, really useful.
Is grep the same as like using grep commands or like printing or pattern searching?
Yes.
Okay.
Echo says, hey, write this to the terminal. It'll be standard out. I'm going to write the words print hello world, and then I'm going to pipe it to a file called hello.py. That does not exist yet, and it's about to. There's a file called hello.py. Run it. Hello world. See there? I wrote some code, and I didn't even get into the file. But it is actually here. Cool things like that. A lot of stuff you can do on the terminal. The more you get used to using it, the better. You don't have to be a wizard on the terminal to do your job. Tiffany probably will. You guys will not. But it's cool to learn. Let's run through these list of things. I covered all of these. Again, make dir, type folder, creates a new folder, touch, makes a file, creates a new file, rm dir or rm dash rf will delete. Pretty sure you can pass this a file also, and it'll be fine, and just say you didn't need to do that. ls list everything, cd change. We're not going to be asking you to do too much beyond these things in the cohort. But if you do see them show up, feel free to ask me. If you want to know more, feel free to ask me. If I'm doing something in class and you don't, know what it means, just ask. I'm happy to explain it. We basically just did all of this. Does anyone have any questions about any of these commands? Have any of you run into issues trying to use these commands? Except for people on Windows, it's going to be slightly different, but not that different. Autocomplete works different on Windows. I think it is.
Tab works for me.
It will work, but the way it autocompletes is different. If you've got a lot of options, sometimes it'll just pick one and say that's good. It's funky. I'm sure it's not that different. But for me, every time I hop into Windows, I get mad at autocomplete. Because it doesn't, and it's not Windows, it's the Windows shell. I think for Windows, it's mdir and not makedir. I could be wrong. But touch should work, RM should work, LS and CD should all work. Sweet. Enough about the command line. We have 2 challenges for y'all. While we're at it though, here's a terminal basics cheat sheet, get basics cheat sheet. Basic Unix commands. You can pretty easily Google how to do this in Windows and get the exact same thing. They'll just be slightly different. I covered most of these. You may see me do cat displays contents of a file, echo prints to the console. I did not use who am I just told you who I was squid. Print working directory. This is how you figure out where you're at. Now git. We today are going to be doing a little bit of git commands. We've installed git. Git should be working for all of you. Today we're going to be doing an exercise with a partner that basically has you pass git stuff back and forth. Git can be very frustrating at first. It can make 0 sense at first, and you can also be a 15 or 20-year developer bugging little Jordan about how Git works, even though you really should know how to do it at work on, a Wednesday. Learning a few of these is going to take you a long way. You don't need to learn all 7 billion Git commands. In fact, the majority that you're going to need to be using are, where's clone at? First, you will git clone a repository. You will work in it. Once you've saved, you will git add specific changes. That stages them. You will then git commit. A commit is basically a save. It's, it's a save message. It's all wrapped into one. You can say all of these changes that I made all these separate changes across all these files. That's one change. And they're all going to be treated as one thing. Even though I touched 4 different files, consider it one change to this larger product, and you're going to have a message that says, I changed 4 things on 4 whatever files. Git push just tells GitHub about it. Git and GitHub are not the same thing. GitHub is a website you interact with that like builds out a user interface for Git. I know I want, I'll preach about needing you all to be super hacky, do it from the terminal, or don't do it at all. GitHub is really useful. Some of these things are not so easily to visualize on a terminal. Especially when you start getting into branches and trees, it gets real ugly because terminal only has so much that it can, visualize. You can only do so much with ASCII text. even though they do a lot to make it nice and clean. So we will be using GitHub for that. But again, git clones a repository, git add stages changes for a commit, git commit packs them up, says that's a change, and commits it to the Git history. Git push tells GitHub about all the commits you've made that it doesn't know about. Sometimes we'll use git init, not a lot in class, but git init basically says, hey, this is a new repository. You can do that from GitHub by creating a repository in GitHub and then cloning down a blank repository, or you can git init and then push it to GitHub. Tends to be easier to just create a new repository in GitHub and then pull it down. Git status, very, very important. Git status says, these are the files that have changes that are not tracked. These are the files that have changes that are tracked. Very important. And git log is useful, but we're not going to be harping on that too much. It's difficult to read. I think we will just kick you out and let y'all work with Git and try to figure these things out. I might not record it and step through the assignment, but I don't really want to record it. That's more for you guys because I'm not really prepared to speak on it all. Let's see. Okay. Your work for today. Actually, I think we're good. I think I should stop recording. I forget. I usually stop recording and then talk about the lecture. All right, everyone, that's been the command line. Congratulations. We all made it. First class back. Laugh at me later, future Jordan. I stopped sharing.